One moment, he was flying down the highway, the roar of the engine, the blur of lights, the thrill of speed. The next, a fireball, a life extinguished. In a tragedy that has shaken the entire football world, Liverpool's rising star Diogo Jota, just 28 years old, was killed in a devastating car crash that turned his Lamborghini into a blazing tomb. Beside him, his brother gone too. The football community is in mourning, fans are in disbelief, and questions are still echoing through the streets. How could such a bright light vanish in seconds? In today's video, we uncover the heartbreaking details of the final moments, the reactions pouring in from teammates and rivals alike, and the haunting footage that has left millions speechless. What really happened in those final, fateful seconds before fire swallowed everything? Was it just speed or something far more sinister? What began as a night of thrill, of horsepower and adrenaline, ended in sheer devastation. Diogo Jota, a shining force for Liverpool FC, adored by millions, was reduced to ashes in an instant. Beside him, his brother, a quiet presence in the public eye, met the same tragic fate. Witnesses recall a screech, a swerve, and then an explosion so violent that first responders couldn't even approach the wreck. It wasn't just an accident. It was a moment that changed lives, silenced a rising star, and left a trail of unanswered questions. But the deeper you dig, the darker this story becomes. Because this wasn't just about speed. Reports now suggest a burst tire, a possible mechanical flaw, and eerie surveillance footage that hints at something more complex than just reckless driving. Was it human error, a failure in the machine, or a preventable disaster that no one saw coming? And what do the early autopsy reports really say? In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on a tragedy that's sending shockwaves through the football world and raising serious questions about responsibility, safety, and the fragile line between life and death when you're driving at the edge. We'll go over the crash's current status minute by minute. We'll show you first-hand accounts from reporters, detectives, and witnesses. We'll examine the vehicle's state, the contentious tire rumors, and the precise series of events that resulted in the explosion. Indeed, we will discuss the implications of this on Jota's legacy, his family, and his global fan base. You won't believe what firefighters found in the burned-out wreckage, or how the probe has now shifted to the automobile manufacturer's potential responsibility. This is more than just a sad mishap. It serves as a terrifying reminder of how quickly things can change and how even the most invincible stars can vanish in a blaze. It began as any other night would. Diogo Jota and his older brother Miguel had just returned from a special dinner outside of Porto, Portugal. According to reports, the two were in a good mood, laughing, laid back, and excited to drive the long distance back in what many would consider a dream vehicle, a matte black 2023 Lamborghini Huracan Performante, customized for maximum performance. However, disaster occurred less than 15 minutes after they left the restaurant. Several witnesses reported seeing the Lamborghini trying to pass a slower-moving vehicle while it was traveling along the A41 expressway. A truck driver who was only 300 feet behind said to the local media that it appeared as though he was speeding up for a pass when the car suddenly wobbled as if something had broken. There were flames everywhere as it jerked, skidded, and then boomed. According to preliminary inquiry reports, the automobile may have veered sharply to the right, collided with a roadside barrier, and flipped onto its side as one of the back tires blew out just as Jota tried to overtake. The actual nightmare started at that point. With its carbon fiber structure and closely spaced twin-turbo engines, the Lamborghini quickly caught fire and burned at temperatures of 1,800 F. Emergency personnel were contacted right away, but it took more than 20 minutes for firefighters to access the interior of the wreckage, since it was so severely consumed in flames. Nothing remained to save by the time they reached the passengers. The terrifying portion comes next. According to autopsy records, both brothers passed away before the car was completely destroyed by the fire. Thus, they were not killed by the fire. It was the blow. Investigators suspect Jota and his brother perished instantly upon collision due to either spinal dislocation or cerebral injuries because the force was so intense. The news came as a sledgehammer to coaches, players, and supporters. In a somber statement, Liverpool FC lamented the passing of one of their greatest stars. Emotional condolences were posted by fellow athletes on Instagram and Twitter. After learning of the news, Klopp reportedly broke down in front of the team, describing Jota as one of the most disciplined and humble men I've ever coached. But even in the thick of the sorrow, doubts started to surface. The tire blew out, but why? Why was Jota operating such a powerful vehicle on a twisty motorway at night? And was there any chance that this whole catastrophe could have been avoided? In the following section, we will delve deeper into that. You may be shocked by what one automotive whistleblower just disclosed on Lamborghini's recent tire integrity history. As sorrow engulfed the football community after Diogo Jota's passing, a different story gradually emerged. One that focused on a mechanical problem that might have been simmering long before Jota got into his car that evening rather than speed or carelessness. International automotive analysts and Portuguese investigators initially reported that the collision was not caused by drunk driving, drug use, or reckless driving. Rather, attention soon shifted to a disastrous tire failure. And a flurry of inquiries has been sparked by this particular revelation. What precisely transpired then? The burst at 120 mph was the crucial failure. Experts estimate the Lamborghini was moving between 115 and 120 miles per hour when the rear passenger side tire blew out. Based on information obtained from local traffic cameras and witness timings, even a slight imbalance in tire pressure or surface contact can result in a total loss of control in a matter of seconds in high-performance cars, like the Lamborghini Huracan. The reason? It seems the tire delaminated, which means the rubber started to separate from the steel or fabric layers underneath, resulting in the abrupt burst, based on an early internal leak from an unidentified inspection. This is where it becomes unsettling though. Owners of Lamborghini vehicles have before encountered unexpected tire failure. Actually, only 9 months prior, Lamborghini had warned of possible heat-related degradation in the Pirelli P0 Trafo R tires, used in the Performance series in a modest technical bulletin rather than a complete recall. Drivers were warned in the document to avoid extended high-speed driving on warm pavement and to periodically check the condition of their tires. However, unless servicing was scheduled, this notice was never made public and was not legally required to be provided directly to individual owners. Therefore, it's quite conceivable that Jota was unaware that his tires could degrade under pressure, particularly while he was passing another vehicle on a hot summer evening. And it gets worse. Only a few days after the collision, an unidentified whistleblower from a high-end European dealership told Autoport News. He asserted that because owners didn't want to hear bad news after spending $300, mechanics ignored early indicators of tire deterioration on similar vehicles due to pressure from senior management. These vehicles' tires are designed for performance on racetracks, not on regular roads. You're risking your life if you operate them at high speeds, even on occasion, without replacing them or doing regular maintenance. Most consumers aren't informed of that, particularly public figures. Legalize the producer. Legal counsel and industry insiders are now starting to speculate that Lamborghini and Pirelli may be subject to legal investigation, particularly if investigators verify that the burst tire was one of the lots mentioned in the silent alert. After only 5,000 meters, Lamborghini owners have already posted numerous times in online forums and fan pages about similar near misses and tire bulges. If confirmed, it might indicate that Jota's passing was more than a terrible accident. It might have happened because of a known avoidable risk that was disregarded. We're looking at something that could become the Porsche 911 recall scandal all over again, according to one analyst. This is where the plot becomes more complex, though, since some people are now questioning why Jota was behind the wheel that evening, and before he got inside the car, who actually had access to it. As more information about the disaster became available, both fans and investigators began to look beyond the debris. What they discovered was more than simply tires or automobiles. Rather, it was about a number of strange, inexplicable choices Diogo Jota made in the 48 hours before the deadly collision. Let's break it down. The last 48 hours. Timeline of subtle red flags. 2 days prior to the crash, Diogo Jota and his brother Miguel were celebrating a brief break before preseason training at a private villa near Bra. What's even more disturbing is the possibility that someone else was involved in the handling of the car before the accident occurred. someone who knew the Lamborghini better than anyone else in Jada's circle. Jota had originally intended to return to Porto with a friend and teammate, but at the last minute, he changed his mind and chose to drive the Lamborghini instead, a car typically kept in storage under strict security. This decision raised questions for a number of reasons, according to a now-deleted Instagram story that fan accounts reposted. According to close sources, Jada's personal assistant had recently been replaced, and the new assistant, whose identity is being kept confidential, allegedly made arrangements for the vehicle to be detailed and prepared for the drive without Jawa's direct supervision. The Lamborghini had reportedly been serviced just a few days prior, but not by his usual garage. That information becomes crucial when you take into account the following assertion. According to an anonymous garage worker who spoke to a Portuguese news outlet, the Lamborghini had minor sidewall tire blistering but was still approved for release. In other words, it's possible that the vehicle was returned to Jada in a compromised state without anyone informing him. The strangeness doesn't end there, though. The dashcam went missing and the passenger was silent. Family statements state that Miguel Jota's brother, who was in the passenger seat, was known to be very cautious when it came to fast driving. Those who knew him say he was the one who always told Dio to slow down. Despite this, reports suggest the car was traveling at an aggressive speed right before the collision. Then, why didn't Miguel speak up? Did they speed that night for other reasons? It's also concerning that, although police were able to recover the car's onboard black box, the internal dashcam was either gone or irreparably damaged, which is extremely unusual for a luxury car that usually has backup video systems. Investigators are now quietly examining whether the dashcam was removed before the trip, why it was removed, whether it was a case of concealing past driving behavior, or whether it was just an oversight. This is especially true after it was discovered that Jota had scheduled a private meeting for the following morning, which was related to a contract renewal discussion with Liverpool FC. What we know for sure is that Jota was not under the influence according to toxicology reports, and he was healthy, alert, and fully capable behind the wheel, which makes this crash all the more puzzling. However, some fans are now spreading a more chilling theory online that someone knew the tires weren't safe and failed to warn him in time. Could stress have played a role? Was there a rush to get somewhere? In the aftermath of the fiery crash that killed Diogo and his brother Miguel, the emotional toll has been nearly impossible to gauge. But behind closed doors, the family's grief is evolving into something else. Could it have been simple negligence? Or is this a case of deeper responsibility where silence from those around him played a tragic role? Let's start with the emotional fallout. The funeral that broke a nation took place in Porto, surrounded by strict security and hidden from most media. But more than 5,000 fans still gathered outside the cathedral to pay their respects. This was a quiet but growing demand for answers and accountability. There was no press conference, no ostentatious tribute video, just raw pain and a chilling silence. With Jada's wife sitting between his distraught parents and Miguel's grieving widow, visibly shaken and fighting back tears. One of Jota's close family friends later told Ebola magazine, "This wasn't just a car crash. This death may have been avoided. Everyone in the family feels it, and they won't just let it go." Increasing legal pressure on Lamborghini and service centers. The family hired a wrongful death and manufacturer liability law firm shortly after the funeral, indicating that they are thinking about filing a lawsuit. This development is especially concerning because they are focusing on three parties, Lamborghini, in particular for not publicly recalling tires with known problems. One of the family's lawyers was quoted off the record as saying, "If these early findings are accurate, then Diogo was essentially handed a death trap and told it was a Lamborghini." The Portuguese service center is accused of releasing the vehicle without informing Jada of sidewall blistering. Pirelli is the tire manufacturer suspected of having defective products, because luxury car brands have up until now operated with a sort of unspoken immunity. Their vehicles are viewed as flawless. Elite and untouchable legal analysts believe this case could set a global precedent. However, with a world-famous football player, a public tragedy, and growing technical evidence, this case may finally shatter that illusion. However, if Lamborghini is found liable in any way, it would destroy trust across the supercar industry. According to one auto law expert on Sky News, we've seen automakers pay hundreds of millions of dollars in the US for defective airbags and brake systems. Fans aren't just mourning, they're organizing on social media. Petition sites are collecting signatures to force Lamborghini to issue a global audit of their tire integrity warnings, with hashtags like Number Justice for Jota and Number Hold Lamborghini accountable trending in several countries. One post went viral, asking, "If this can happen to a millionaire athlete with the best equipment, what chance do the rest of us have?" These businesses must be open and honest, not inscrutable. Liverpool FC's relative silence on the subject has also drawn criticism from certain supporters. Although squad players donned black armbands for their subsequent game and tributes were paid, the club has not released an official comment, either the tire dispute or the investigation. This silence has sparked concerns that the story may be being carefully controlled due to economic sponsorships or public relations considerations. However, it appears that Jota's family has lost interest in optics. They seek justice and the truth. This story is far from over, if the increasing legal momentum is any guide. Dio and his brother Miguel's terrible deaths are more than just a story in the news. They are now a wake-up call for the entire world, a devastating reminder that we can lose even the most unbeatable people in an instant. Not by carelessness, but perhaps via carelessness concealed by wealth and status. One thing is certain as investigators continue to examine the wreckage and the black box data, and as attorneys get ready for what may turn out to be the largest liability lawsuit Lamborghini has had in years. It should never have happened that a firestorm claimed the lives of two young people. Additionally, the football community is left feeling empty, while the supercar community laments the passing of one of its most well-known fans. There is now silence in the stadium where Jota's name used to scream. In an effort to preserve the memory of a player who played with discipline, humility, and heart, young supporters continue to wear his jersey to games. What occurs now, though? Will Lamborghini eventually own their part in the secret danger that high-performance tire systems pose? Or will they issue a recall? Will luxury car dealers be compelled to cease putting appearance before security, particularly when dealing with high-profile customers and celebrities? Above all, will Jota's family ever receive the justice and accountability they are due? There is little doubt that Jota's tale is far from over. Every time a fan inspects the tires before a road trip, every time a parent buckles up their child, and every time we wonder if faith in a brand is more important than the truth, it goes on. Even though the automobile was destroyed by the fire, it ignited a spark that is now irreplaceable.